the same type of thing. I used it like years later as a way to describe the kind of the symbol of the future, or a kind of a clear future, when all of the inventions of the past have been recapitulated. It's like when anyone invents something now, it almost seems like an act of nostalgia, where you know that in millions of years ago that it happened before, and so that there would become like a theoretical point when everything would be recapitulated, and then you would have an actual future in which it would then be possible, in a sense, to think about things like how to redesign the entire universe, how to move the universe from the fourth to the fifth dimension, because all the technology would be present. Again, something dealing with history in relation to systems thinking, where a kind of transdisciplinary approach to all thought processes would converge on how a person wrote history. So that this is kind of like a diagram. But I mean, I'm very interested, like in a lot of what I do, you see words and lines and things like that. I started out dealing with diagrams. I think diagrams are an important element in the visionary genre. Because you can bring together so many things. It's like a natural transdisciplinary formulation. This is my Lebogyre, an attempt to create a structured singularity. This is like a way of modeling a photon, in which through a series of shells, and taken the so-called precessional axis of the gyroscope and divided it up and redistributed it in space in the form of two interlocking three-dimensional equiangular spirals. So you get a torque transfer inward with the use of ferrofluidics in between, solenoid-driven motors, electric motors, and then now with what the torque axis, a series of torque rings, through the use of laser beams, that you're getting something going at the speed of light, and you're pressing the speed of light, so that it's actually kind of a device which opens up a dimensional portal. And I used that originally. I wanted it for my time machine. And it was like when H.G. Wells in 1895 wrote the Time Machine, he had been influenced by Edward Page Mitchell in 1881, who wrote about it, and like began to think of like how it would be done, because this is like really a kind of transcendence of time. Because if you think about the history of the concept of time travel, what you have of models are things like pre-retrocognition, seeing into the future and into the past. And that what you really want is somehow to get a radical dislocation of consciousness from your natural time. And so I used the Lebogyre in the center here as the body of this pendulum, because I was saying before, any pendulum system has two natural singularities. If you bring two or more natural singularities together, you can get, in my own personal view of physics, that you can get a dimensional portal and you can get meta energy in and out of the system, so that this would actually increase or decrease the natural meta energy that creates the survival perception system. It's like when you perceive, it's like a mutual interdependence of sensation and conception, and that you utilize this meta energy, or these other names, whatever you want to call it, through your system in order to work. If you have a surplus of it, you begin to anticipate the future. If you have a dearth of it, you begin to get into memory. And I think that the people will monitor what goes on when people are in memory states, are anticipating the future. They'll find that as people get involved with say, more advanced things in acupuncture and the chakra system, that they'll be able to monitor actually how this happens in relation to these states. this painting's upstairs, and this is my second version of my time machine, which I have like in time suit, because if you go into a sense, are presented with a radical dislocation of your natural time, then you will be unable to, for the most part, understand any of the information in programming. Like the worldview will be different. Normally, like a person's worldview lasts like 100 years, and then the world changes so that the new things happen. If you look at some things from the 19th century, you're going to see devices that nobody knows what they're for anymore. What's the time? Getting too late? 1:30. It's 1:30. Yep. Okay, let me move on here. Okay, this is also upstairs, and this is my proposal to actually redesign the entire physical universe as a body of light, based on my Lego jar and a lot of the other information I was talking about. I can go into more detail later. There's a hypersphere, a fourth dimensional sphere. Again, it could be rendered three-dimensionally. It could be made into like a three-dimensional mandala. I have it two-dimensionally. I'm very interested in flying saucers, and that's something that I saw actually from an airplane in 1966 over the Midwest. And then I began to become interested in things like close design to the Earth, where I hooked the Moon and the Earth up with a physical link and double-layered geodetic spheres around the Earth and the Moon. I wrote to Fuller about this, and he agreed that it was theoretically possible. I also wanted to work in my interest in flying saucers as a new type of a city, a new acropolis, where that you would have to this would be something where the entrance to it, the entrance requirement, in a sense, would be to the extent to which you can integrate all of your knowledge at the position you were in, so that there would be, in a sense, a true sacred space, a space that could not be entered. Today, when people design churches in that way, that you can physically move through them without any problem. There's no thing. It's almost like a supermarket. There's no position of where the space rejects you because of like your lack of personal integration. I wanted to deal with that. I wanted to deal with like a total living environment. Say like working with the geneticists now, a reference to living architecture, where you would eventually have all of the environment, all the buildings would be composed of somehow living tissue would work. Now we deal with dead material, or dead in a relative word, but that remains stabilized. But this would be, and you find that anyone who's working in architecture today is like trying to get simulations of things that are living. Like there's a chair at MIT that like responds to each individual when they sit on it. So that's moving like in that direction. This one is like a plan for a new wave center. I think that as we redesign the world, which is happening, I mean, all over the place. I mean, you're getting kind of a real world vision that you'll have to set up on what is the Earth's chakra system. It's like around the world is a kind of node points that are composed of an icosahedron and a pentagonal dodecahedron. So we're back to Plato and Pythagoras as like as a basic way of observing how the energy of the Earth, which in a sense has been kind of turned off, been disconnected to the rest of the universe. That if we activate those points with structured singularities and places where people live to do basically that function, that then you'll have like a kind of an interconnected system again, and you can then deal with things like the plate system of the Earth. The continents now appear funny because they have all these wiggly lines around it. They look like they're coming apart and going together around the Earth, and don't really make much sense. So it's like a wave pattern that's almost like a holding pattern, and that the Earth would, in a sense, would be much better designed in a more kind of tighter geometric form. So you could distribute goods and people in a more equitable way, and you could begin to physically design all of it. I think that leaving wildwood that way is really not what's going to happen in the future.